Planning Commission regular meeting, March 25th, 2025. In council chambers is called to order at 6:31 p.m. Roll call, go down the ranks. Eric Valchef chair is here. Rhiannon.
Here.
Megan is not here, correct?
Not yet.
She will be joining, I believe, shortly. AJ.
Here.
All right, and our vacant position is not here, so. Okay, so we're gonna lead things off with an approval of the minutes. If there's a motion to approve the minutes as posted in the packet, from the last meeting.
I motion to approve.
Second.
Second, thank you, Rhiannon. So with that, we are all in favor? Yeah.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll approve the minutes from the 22-25, February 25th, 2025 meeting. So I'm gonna leave things off with mentioning and acknowledging that information outside of the committee has been distributed in public domain by private citizens, and we're thrilled to see it. And there is also been a statement prior to this meeting from this committee released in the past week leading up to tonight's meeting. I'm going to read that statement into the meeting now for the minutes. In the last planning commission meeting, we examined a presentation on conformity. The topic surfaced in response to community member concerns about how to help a particular neighborhood in our community, Thomas Street. The commission examined a thorough presentation from borough staff on conformance and what options might exist. This was an educational session only. There was no inclination from the planning commission members to pursue this strategy further, and we took no action as we wanted to hear public feedback.
More public feedback.
Yeah, more public feedback. Yes, absolutely. So with that, I will say that public comment will lead off the meeting tonight. The public comment to lead things off is on agenda items only. You all have the opportunity to see the agenda in front of you. It's been posted online as well for several days. This is the first of two public comment opportunities on this agenda. Please note that Crafton residents, property owners, business owners may comment only. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. As always, we ask that you please refrain from personal attacks or obscene language. Please also note that any comments on items not included in tonight's agenda are welcome, but they'll be heard during the open general public comment forum found later on in tonight's agenda, the meeting's agenda. You're welcome to provide comments in either or both of these forums. It's 3 minutes in either forum. And finally, while public comment isn't a dialogue, the way that's established, the commission will ask staff that's present to be available to address and clarify in the event that there's any misunderstandings or misstatements herein. So with that, there is a sign-in sheet. I'll ask for those online. We can start with the group here. We'll start with the group here, and then later on we'll start with the group online. So we'll start with the group here. When you come up, we ask that you sign in, name, address, the things that are on the page. When you introduce yourself, this is recorded in the public domain. We do not ask that you read in your personal address.
Right.
You certainly don't have to die. Yeah. There's no need for that because it'll be collected in the sign up form. So with that, I'll turn it over to whoever wants to be first.
Doesn't look like we already have someone signed up, and that's Stacy Hicks. For commenting, was that not for the site? Okay, that's fine. Anybody else who wants to Sandy?
Okay, this is for the agenda items.
Yeah.
For the zoning stuff.
The agenda items tonight.
Yeah, the zoning discussion.
The number 8 is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 8.
The 25.
That's not on the
That's
agenda.
number 7.
That's not on the agenda.
No, I thought.
We have the
This-
Conservancy District and a public meeting on April under the zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
Is line 7 what you want to talk about?
So there's nothing to be said about the 25-foot.
No, I think that's 7, right? Lot line revision.
No,
no,
that's
That's not
different.
it.
No.
Never mind.
So,
It's not on the agenda.
okay,
Yep, we have no business on the 25 foot.
That's understood.
Yeah, lot line revision is regarding another,
An
an application.
Right.
Yep.
All right, with that,
Oh,
sworn
okay.
down? Yep.
Palm Street on the agenda?
No,
No, okay, lot line application is on the agenda?
Lot line application is on the agenda.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
My only comment on that, Greg Wozniak, my only comment on that, Mike, is that, I did a real quick, review of, your analysis of subdivisions and, the review I did, your steps and all of that, that seems right, but it seems that your costs seem to be coming up much higher than what I'm finding, and I was wondering if you would be able to do a line by line where you got your cost items. As far as saying that it was $75,000 for professional fees. So if you could break that down for us, I'd appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, we get a lot of talk about zoning and all that other stuff after.
Absolutely, that's open. This is just the pre is just about agenda items only. You guys, we're trying to get to the point where we get through the business of the meeting, so we can hear your feedback on the non-agenda item. We don't have any agenda regarding those items. We're kind of looking forward to your feedback around those items. So thank you. So with that, any other online agenda item comments?
does not look like it.
Yeah, agenda's the first
Front
page.
page,
Just the
first page of the handout.
It's the first page. It should be, yeah, the very top page of the.
That, everything on
Right
that
here.
first page are agenda.
That's tonight's agenda. It's tonight's, you've picked up a packet up front, or you've downloaded online. It's the very first page of the packet is tonight's agenda. I'll give you a rundown. The second page will be the minutes from the last meeting, which we just approved. There's several pages of that, and then there's a memo from Mandy and some other information that will be covered in the presentation from borough staff this evening. So, okay, with that in mind, we're gonna move forward with the Business Development Committee update.
And I don't know if we want to go forward without Megan until she's on. She said she might be on in 15 to 20,
Okay,
so we could shift and then.
we can
back up.
table that. We can table that if that's okay with everybody, okay? The business development, can you give us, for those that are new, and we appreciate you being here. For those that are new, can you just tell us what the business development subcommittee is formed to do?
Sure, and that is part of what Megan was.
You're in the
going to go
early
through.
stages, yeah.
But that's
yeah.
what Megan was gonna be covering, but we're not in the early stages, we're in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, we're, so we announced in January that we were forming a committee, which we have chosen to, through guidance, call working group, because it has no decision making. It's just a working group, go out, work together, gather information, make recommendations, consider things and so forth. We put the notice of application out. We allowed 3 weeks. We got some wonderful responses. We interviewed each individual and asked them to state what were they bringing? Why do they want to be on the committee, and what particular skills could they bring to us so that we have a good distribution of talent on the committee? And we launched the committee on 3/18. We're very excited, and Megan's plan is to speak to some of
A
this.
little more depth.
And
Yep,
then I
yep.
will review who is on the committee and why we're so excited, and then next steps and where we are.
Thank you very much, Mary J. All right, so we're gonna reconvene on that in a few minutes here. Hopefully Megan's able to join. The next is, it's general information on the subdivision land, process. Is that something you want to speak to?
Yes.
Thank you,
please.
sir.
Good evening, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Mike Tedesco. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director for Crafton. The purpose of this agenda item is just to provide Planning Commission and the public with some awareness around our subdivision process for the borough. So this is just a general procedural educational conversation around the subdivision.
What is a
process.
subdivision?
A subdivision is when you take a larger parcel of land and turn it into multiple parcels of land. So
To clarify, it can also be just moving a property line. It can also be combining two properties. Those are all called subdivision processes. That just happens to be one version of a
Yes.
subdivision process.
the borough adopted a code. Chapter 197 is 35 pages long, called the Subdivision and Land Development Code, which guides the process. And the process is also guided by Commonwealth law as well as our zoning code, current and future zoning codes. So in the scenario that I put together that everybody sees on the screen, the assumption is one property owner is subdividing their 50-foot wide property into two 25-foot wide lots in order to build a house on each lot. So this is one of the more simple examples of a subdivision process. And I don't want to go through the entire list of 14 steps, but I will go through the first half of steps. And Greg, I'll address your question while I'm talking. So it requires a lot of professional certifications by state licensed individuals, really specifically a licensed surveyor and a licensed engineer and a licensed architect for the building design specifically. So obviously, if you're going to subdivide your lot, you have to go to market for that. Surveyors, and this is via a Google search, local surveyors are roughly $250 an hour. Now, you know, people shop around. And an engineer, local engineers, roughly $150 an hour. You're paying for their expertise and their state license, which is a requirement. The applicant has an optional pre-conference with the Planning Commission and or borough staff to inform us what they intend to do and kind of their conceptual plans around the project, and to gain any feedback from staff, Planning Commission, the public about their approach. And then this is where the professionals get to work. The surveyors go out and plot the land, stake the land. The engineer starts drawing up engineer designs around the land that include all sorts of requirements from the code. In order for an applicant to fulfill a full application to the borough, there are 73 requirements within the application that range from very easy things like you need a name for your subdivision, all the way down to complicated things like the traffic impact analysis, geologic reports. I mentioned the survey. And those add up very quickly. So for instance, a typical survey, an easy survey, is roughly $6,000, roughly. More complicated surveys get more expensive. Traffic impact analysis, for an easy impact analysis, $12,000, $15,000 for something very simple. More complicated impact analysis will go up and will scale accordingly and become very expensive. And then there's geologic reports, and those are, you know, going to be around $15,000, at least for this scenario. And then, Greg, to your question, the remainder of that would be the hourly time spent for the licensed professionals to fill out all of the requirements, the 73 requirements of the application, and submit a full application to the borough. Once the applicant does so, staff, and in this case, it's me and DJ specifically, we have 5 days to review the application and basically checklist the 73 requirements and make sure that the applicant fulfilled them. And if they missed any one of those requirements or anyone are incomplete, then we return the application package to the applicant and say, please fix this, and then resubmit. And it kind of goes around and around until there is a complete application in hand. An application package is quite thick even for the simple applications. Once it's deemed administratively complete by staff, then what the code says is we distribute it to all of our professionals, our elected officials, and our appointed officials. So planning commission gets a copy, solicitor gets a copy, our licensed engineer gets a copy, borough council gets a copy, and even Allegheny County gets a copy. And I'm assuming the Allegheny County part stems from the Commonwealth's law, because that's what's written in Crafton's code on that. Generally speaking, there's a little nuance here, but professional recommendations from borough staff and our professional guidance, such as our engineers and our solicitor, has 20 days to come back with whatever their recommendations might be for the application to either improve it or make modifications. Planning Commission has 30 days to hear an application and consider it one way or another. Planning Commission may recommend approval with conditions / modifications, or disapproval of the application to Borough Council. AJ?
Is it 30 or 60? The planning.
Does it say 60?
Considers a preliminary application within 60 days of
It's 60.
receipt of the completed.
It's 60, thank you. Assuming Planning Commission chooses to move it forward to Borough Council, the applicant has a choice, if applicable, to incorporate Planning Commission's recommendations into the application, if applicable, if Planning Commission has them. Or not, and then it goes to council, and council has a 90-day period, up to 90 days to hear the application. So all of those steps take months and cost thousands of dollars to fulfill. And they're very complicated steps when it comes down to it. And there's a lot of technical work that needs to be reviewed. So that is the first 7 steps of the process. Assuming council approves the preliminary plan, then the process restarts all over again with a final plan application. And we go through those first 7 steps again. Now, for sure, the final plan application is more affordable than the preliminary plan application as far as the applicant's professional time goes, because the bulk of the work is already done. But it goes through Planning Commission again, and it goes through Borough Council again, and assuming approval, then the applicant must submit a form of security to essentially insure the property and ensure that the public improvements that the applicant agreed upon within the application are fulfilled, as well as execute a developer's agreement with the borough. So all of that takes additional time, attorney's fees, and just professional work to get done. And I think the primary purpose of this memo from an educational standpoint is it is an arduous process to subdivide a property, and it's very, very public. The application packet is public. The public meetings are obviously public. Every step along the way is public. And it's not cheap for the applicant to go through the process. So I know there's discussion around the community about this process. So Jim and I thought it was appropriate to bring this conversation to Planning Commission just for educational purposes. And I will stop there.
I think I want to add one additional point that wasn't necessarily made clear, and that is unlike variances and several other processes that the Planning Commission or the council has to go through, which require that you do things as they're presented legally, or you can be appealed. This is not an appealable decision. If Planning Commission decides to say no, or if the council decides to say no, so you can invest $75,000 in going through this process to divide your property, and council can just say no, and there's no recourse. At least that's my understanding. Yeah. So just to add that is, you can try to do this, and community can come out against it, and council can decide simply not to do it. And there's no recourse against the person who started the process.
And that is for a single developer's request.
That is for any
Single-
subdivision,
any
any
subdivision
subdivision
request.
process.
That would come either from a resident or a developer.
That's correct.
Okay, just so that.
So if you're a developer, it's a very risky process to enter into for a profit margin, for the gain profit.
And it's very much in the developer's best interest to gain some community support prior to going through the process.
I'm curious if Rhiannon has any questions or Megan has said she'll be joining shortly.
Yes, I haven't seen her yet.
Right. You'd
I
see
don't
me
have
if I-
any, yeah, I don't have any questions on this. Thanks for the information.
Agreed.
I can just clarify here. The numbers that you're, $75,000 is probably a high side of the range,
I was thinking it was fairly optimistic side.
an optimistic side of the range.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we can discuss,
Yeah,
debate,
I mean-
debate that separately, but yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
There will be costs and the costs are not insignificant. Against the creation of what then needs to be constructed and all of the other downstream things of once you do gain approval. So just to get there from a 50-foot lot to 225s is a significant price tag.
Yes.
And a lot of steps, and certainly when you add up the time here, months to come through, if not a full year. Cases may be more. Okay, any other questions? AJ, any other questions from the team?
Yes.
Brianna? Okay. All right, so with that, we're gonna move forward. That was just informational. We're gonna move forward to a practical application of this, a lot line revision application, briefing and process to follow. What I'll say is this, what's gonna be presented right now is not an ask for a recommendation from council at this point. Something will be presented for recommendation in a forthcoming meeting, but this is kind of a where is this now in terms of a particular issue? And an opportunity for us to be kind of made aware of something that's coming down the pike.
Yes. Okay, so thank you. And this is really interestingly, just by coincidence, related to the previous agenda item because it's subject to the same chapter 197 subdivision and land development code. Only in this particular instance, what I'm about to brief you on is an application that recently came in a couple of weeks ago now for a lot line revision. And I want to orient everybody to where the property is, and then we can talk quickly about the process that follows. We are the blue dot in the middle. You can see the borough of Crafton is surrounded by the red lines. We are presently sitting in the blue dot in the middle. The property is located down at that left corner in the orange, roughly at the corner of Ewing and DeSoto, right there. And if you hit me with the slide. Yes, now we're zooming in on the two parcels in question. So we're looking at Ewing and DeSoto. The parcels are highlighted there in orange. And what the application is requesting, hit me with moving the lot line. There's the cool graphic. Down a little bit so they can fit a new house and a detached garage better on the property. Right now, the property is a little bit tight for it, so the applicant is requesting to nudge the lot line, I guess, southerly. The neighboring parcel, the parcel on the bottom, is the applicant's mother's house, so she is game for moving the lot line as well. That is no problem. That little gray rectangle that says 246, that's the actual house. This is a Google map, so you kind of have a sense of where all the structures are, and then they'll. What they're requesting is a new structure located on the revised property line. And all of this goes through the process that I just described, with the exception of, we can combine the preliminary application with the final application. So because it's so simple that there's no reason to go through such an arduous process.
Okay.
So, and that's outlined in the rules and regulations. The application packet is almost complete. So we're expecting it to be complete in the coming days. And then, just like I said, everybody's going to get a copy. And then all of our technical professionals start reviewing the application and prepping it for public discussion at Planning Commission and eventually Borough Council.
Mhm.
So this is for informational purposes only. The applicant is here if you wish to ask questions, but the detailed discussion is to come.
Thank you.
Makes perfect sense to me. I don't have any questions. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I know where they're talking about explicitly. Do you have any questions? Is there any questions online from Rihanna?
I don't have any questions at this time. Appreciate the heads up.
Yeah, I would say I'm in the same place. I am curious what would make this more complicated?
If they were subdividing it into two parcels.
Okay,
Yeah, or one of those parcels. This is fairly,
it's just a change within this
Yeah.
big block of shift.
yes, and
And the ownership is such that it makes it straightforward.
chatting with Eric a couple hours before the meeting, talking about the meeting. This is kind of a garden variety planning commission thing that planning commissions are legally required to do. And it's a little unusual because Crafton's more or less built out, but now you're getting one of those things in front of you.
Yeah, creating a new lot, if you're splitting, triggers a more complicated process through the actual ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, Rihanna, okay. So with that, again, that is not there's no action to take other than, hey, this is something that the borough's been engaged by. This is something that's coming down the pike, colloquial speaking. So, thank you. Moving on to agenda item, I believe, number 8, the zoning discussion itself. First and foremost, we have 2 bullets here. One is the public meeting on April 2nd at 6 p.m. Mike, can you just tell us where that's going to happen? and
Yes.
just do-
6 p.m., a public meeting here in the big room over there, the community room. We'll have a professional facilitator kind of running the show. We're chatting with her tomorrow morning. We can discuss formatting, agenda items for that, in the coming days, leading up to the meeting. All are welcome to that
Yeah.
public
Been
discussion.
a lot of planning leading up to this. It's April 2nd, 6 p.m. It's right here next door. But all are welcome. This is an opportunity to kind of level set, reset where we are, where we're heading. With zoning, why it's important. So we understand as far as planning commission members, staff are open to our entertaining or working with us in terms of suggestions, in terms of formatting, how to structure the event, et cetera. So we'll work on that in the next couple of days. But again, a facilitator has been engaged, or is being, I should say, engaged to actually be on hand to lead the event itself. So I'm pretty excited. Everybody's pretty excited about this. There's been a lot of work to get this pulled off in a very little amount of time. So April 2nd is coming quick, 6 p.m. So mark your calendars. If you'd like to be here, please come. Perhaps time permitting, I think we can get there. Perhaps we can develop what I'm going to call, we can rename, what I'll call an FAQ. And in what I was thinking about, what I want to discuss with the fellow commission members is for attendees, also placed on the website for those who can't be there, et cetera. On, why are we going through zoning? How does it align to Thrive? Just essential questions that everybody here tonight and who's come over the past several months and a couple of years now, we've been at this. How does it align to Thrive? Does the plan increase residential density? Is that what the plan is doing in residential neighborhoods? What authority, this has come up oftentimes, many of you I've seen that have asked this, what authority does the borough have with regard to the renter owner mix within town? How does zoning actually work with that? And it's just a general market landscape. So it's a kind of series of, it's one page, couple of page kind of a FAQ packet. Do you think that's something that we could do, general market landscape kind of stuff? Is that something we could do prior to, well, I guess it's
Next
actually
week.
Wednesday.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel like you guys have capacity to do that?
Yeah, we can put some together, for sure.
So with that, can I call on my fellow planning commission members to help follow up on things that you've learned. AJ, you're new to this, right? I've been kind of in the midst of this for a couple of years now. But fresh eyes, you know, like what are things that were like, oh, I didn't know that zoning did that, or I thought zoning did that, and no, I realized that it doesn't. Can you help with some of those things? And Rhiannon, can you make yourself available to submit some of those things?
Yeah, I certainly will do my
Yeah.
best to do that. I'm very much looking forward to this. I have one thing, just for the record, I would like to just say a couple things. Number
Yeah.
one, I can only spend 30 minutes at that meeting. So just to calibrate expectations, it wasn't it just wasn't my night.
Oh, look at
So
that. Yeah, that's fine.
I will be there for in which I could stay longer, but I can't.
Yeah.
Number two, so this is really, and I just want to clarify for the record, the intention of this is because so many people have entered the process later.
Mhm.
Some have been along from the beginning, others have come later. We've done various versions of this. Now, as we want to make sure this is the time to get everybody to have a start to finish opportunity to see where we are, to provide answers to some standard questions,
Right.
and then the facilitator, my guess would be the facilitator's big role would be managing the question and answer period and making sure that that is handled correctly and efficiently, not that it would be incorrect, but just efficiently and appropriately. So that is the goal of the April 2nd meeting, public meeting, is to have this opportunity. And anybody you know who hasn't been involved but would like to come and get started from an overview, we won't belabor it, but we'll be going through it. Is that a good description?
Lay it out and collect the feedback. That's absolutely right. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
I would just add that I think that it might be, more beneficial instead of laying out an FAQ that we're kind of guessing at what the frequently asked questions may be, is just to really encourage the public to submit questions, queries ahead of time, kind of look at past meeting minutes to see any questions that may have been unanswered so that we can be prepared to answer them at the meeting. Because I think they're going to be, we're not going to be able to anticipate all the questions, but anything that we can get ahead of time, I think it'll help us answer things there at the meeting, instead of telling people, oh, we have to go back and look into it. So just making sure that people know how to contact the planning commission, how to contact staff and council. And I think that may be a little more helpful than the FAQ, although I do think that's a good suggestion. But given the limited amount of time, that's where my priority would be encouraging that
Brianna,
question
with
to the
you,
public.
probably a combination.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the nature of the questions will come in, will guide where we spend the majority of the time, but we likely may need some, like, not to belabor anything, but we need some level setting.
Yeah.
So I would be in
And we
favor
can,
of both of those.
we can certainly, I'll volunteer staff for this one. We can certainly take what we can over, it's a week away. Yeah, it's a week away. Okay, we all have a lot going on next week. But we can
That's- we don't
put
want people to-
together an
right.
FAQ of what we think. We can gather, again, planning commission has an email address at crafton.org. Is planning commission one of the fields on the service request? It's not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So you would be limited to the planning commission email, which is found on the planning commission webpage. You can reach out to the borough office directly. We will not be able to scrape posts on social media of questions that you have. So please, if you have questions, make sure that they formally get to us so that we can be addressing them. We'll be collecting questions there as well. So in my mind, we'll have an FAQ that'll kind of level set as we head in. And then maybe we have a revised, maybe extended version, appended version, that we can release post the event as well. Okay? Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Sounds good.
So we want FAQ, we want questions.
Yeah.
And we will take questions at the meeting.
Absolutely.
So all of those are happening, and I would just highly encourage us, since the number of days is short, that we have as many people who have questions. I'd encourage the community to get questions in by Friday, close of business if possible, so that we can analyze, put them together, and then have time to produce a
Consolidate.
reasonable document by
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yep. Absolutely.
Doesn't mean we won't take them late. We'll just have a better chance of getting it together.
Right, and just because you have a question that might not make it on the FAQ, doesn't mean that it
Doesn't
won't be,
have to
we're
be
gonna,
FAQ.
we're gonna try and
Be
get
just
the,
like top
right,
questions, right?
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, so. Don't feel like the printed page is an absolute or final, it's an iteration of what are the answers to come, because we want you all to have the answers that we all need. Anyway, so with that, there's no recommendation there, it's just a staff request. So we're gonna move forward. to the next agenda item, which is zoning discussion part B, conservancy district designations. Now, to my fellow planning commission members, we would need to motion to make the change on what is going to be presented to us. So Jim, if I could ask you to kind of refresh us on, this is from some prior discussion that we've had, the conservancy district designations and what that means.
Thank you. Yes, let me share my screen with, and Megan is
Megan.
here, so we can, so after I do this, we can go back to the business subcommittee. All right. So this was also something that came out of this is a conformity question. And this was something that came out of the Thomas Street examination, basically looking at how we can make more properties in the borough fall into the conformance category. And so the first is looking more closely at things that have been in the conservancy district. So these are properties that are listed in a district that is designed to protect against building on steep slopes, building in floodplains, or building in other ecologically challenged areas. And back when they first marked these as conservancy, my guess is they were marked because they were up on a fairly steep hill and they are close to very steep areas. But I went through and looked at each one of these properties individually for the slope lines that are on each of these properties. And I will expand this a little more so you can see. So these properties up here in the corner, these are the ones up on Rogers, Josephine, and Lawson Avenue. All of the ones that are circled in blue, we are recommending that they get moved into the NR district because they are not, those independently are not on steep slopes. They are next to properties that are on very steep slopes, but these properties themselves are not at all on steep slopes. And so they are very, the borough would not want to make it more difficult for them to rebuild or to do extra work. So this would be allowing them to be conforming and thus not putting that artificial barrier for them. And so this is basically shrinking the conservancy district since these are not insensitive areas currently, although at one point they were designated that way. The same thing goes for the houses along South Grandview Avenue. Where you are allowed to build a house in those areas is within 5 to 10 yards of the front yard. And the slopes on those properties don't happen until much later in the property. So there's no risk of the slopes in this given neighborhood. This neighborhood is recommended to be switched to CR because it has several large. It has a 4-unit building, a 3-unit building, and a couple 2-unit buildings. So it is a mixed, it does have different types of properties on that lot. And then in the last area, the last 2 areas, we are recommending switching these as well because they are again not on steep slopes, not at ecological risk. So this is moving them into a regular residential area will allow them to be more easily rebuilt and less challenges when they're going through either a rebuilding process or a major reconstruction process. And so the top area on South Grandview Ave is recommended to be an NR because those are mostly single family homes or a couple duplexes in there or one duplex maybe. And then the other area here is recommended to be CR because these are townhouses and an apartment complex. So those would make more sense to be in the CR. But collectively I think there were 87 properties that we're recommending taking out of the conservancy district and putting in either NR or CR.
Do you have any insight into why they were classified as conservancy in the beginning?
My guess is because before they had access to the mapping tools that I do and that you have nowadays, if you generally looked at that neighborhood, it does look like there's a lot of steep slopes. But if you look at the very specific properties that I've pointed out, they do not suffer from those issues. So my guess is they were abutting properties that were steep slopes and people just made a choice to make this whole swath in the conservancy district is my guess why it happened. But there's no way to know without being able to go back and read the minds of the planning commission members from 2004.
And these
or
are,
before.
these are 87 parcels. That are, the recommendation here, if I understand this correct, is 87 parcels that are currently built.
Yes, they all have houses on them.
They all
So
have-
it's not like you're gonna add any development at all.
There's no new development that's happening. This is moving conservancy district houses into conservancy to some residential designation because they don't hit the steep slope force of the conservancy district.
Exactly.
Okay.
In addition, it is much more important for the ones that are marked CR than the one that are marked NR. Because it is easier to rebuild a single family house because our non-conformity section has the ability to build a single family
Can you
house.
say that again? I was distracted.
That's okay. So the non-conformity section of both the current code and the new code have a provision that if you have a vacant lot, whether it's non-conforming or not, you can build a single family house, no matter what. And there are 81 properties already that exist in the borough that have not been built upon mainly for economics. There's not a lot of economics there to build a brand new. Building a custom house is expensive. And then, so it's more important for the ones that are apartment complexes or multi-units because there is no provision to allow those to rebuild or major reconstruction, and they will be very limited if they ever want to improve. So if you want to make sure that the townhouses and multi-unit homes are kept up, it would be very important to make sure that those are in areas that are conforming, because that does weigh pretty heavily on those structures. Much more heavily than it does on single family homes.
And what would potential objections be? What would be?
I can't think of any. The reality is these are 87 current structures that are in conservancy that should something happen will be very much a hardship for them to recover from. While we're doing this process, moving them to their adjacent residential neighborhood CR, whatever NR, moving them to that designation would give them the ability to upgrade their property, maintain their property, do the things that they need to do besides roof siding and windows that they're limited to at this point. Right, so there's no net new density issue, there's no net new build issue. These are existing properties, right? This is just one of those things that came out of, the whole Thomas Street exploration led to, well, the lot line thing, which we're like, maybe not. But this led to, identifying these 87, I want to say, properties that are like, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense and it's actually a hardship on them. Why not move them out of conservancy because they're not technically in conservancy, given the slope restrictions and the things that are today. So I don't see any downside to it.
So I don't want to belabor it. I just recall from the last meeting that when I listened to the tape, that there was a concern, and I'm wondering if there are people who this will affect. While we know the benefits, are there any takeaways from them? Things that they would be losing?
Not that I'm aware of. There was a concern last week that this would encourage development, but again, every one of these properties is developed. They're not, I don't think there's a single vacant property in this group. So I would not know how it would encourage development, but that was a fear expressed at the last meeting, but I don't know how that would happen.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, we would need a motion to make the change. I'll go forward and make the motion to make the change. I'll entertain a second. No second?
I'll second that.
Agenda for this item?
There doesn't need to be a motion on an agenda for an item. You just have to have an agenda item up and you can motion.
I was just gonna say, my only hold would be for any additional comments. Everybody's waiting to hear the conversation. Yeah.
So this is to put it into the plan. Right? So let's back up for a second. What does this motion mean? This motion means that we'll put it into the plan. It doesn't mean that it can't be removed from the plan. The plan is not approved.
Right.
This is simply to do the work of updating the map, and put it into the plan so that when we finalize the plan at some point, these would no longer be burdened by conservancy. They would be in their respective residential designation. So this is a motion specifically, I'll clarify it again, to amend the draft plan as it stands today for these 87 properties with dwellings on them currently to move from conservancy to their proximate residential designation.
Right.
So I did hear a second online. Was that Rhiannon or was that?
That was Rhiannon.
Okay. Are we all good with discussion? All right, so all in favor? Aye.
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 Did I hear Megan?
And Megan did say aye,
Yes, aye.
Okay,
but then Rhiannon got bumped.
okay.
Anna got what?
She got
I don't-
bumped up.
Yep, she got bumped.
So all four, but so
Based
moved.
on what you said.
So we're gonna, yeah, it's gonna be placed into the draft plan. It doesn't mean that
Right.
there's nothing here that's set in stone. It just gives them the opportunity to reshape the map so that we can see what this looks like. And again, the idea is it's equity. It's about helping the
Right.
people who live there. Now's the time to do it because zoning is open. Okay, so I want to thank the staff for identifying these properties. I think it's a good find. It's a welcome respite. Hopefully nothing ever happens to these people in these locations, but if it does, it puts us in a pretty good place. So with that, we've reached the end of the agenda
Except for business development.
items. We're
Oh,
gonna,
no.
we're gonna revisit.
Yep.
We're gonna revisit, we have two things left. We're gonna revisit before we get to your comment, trying to get there as quickly as possible for you all to speak. We're gonna revisit number 5 now. The Business Development Committee update on your agenda packets. Now that Meg has joined us. Meg, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
Floor is yours.
Thanks. We held our first business development working group meeting on the 18th, this past Tuesday, a week ago. There are a few, I'm not sure if this was already discussed, but should we start with a conversation of appointments to the subcommittee working group of people who had applied prior to the deadline but did not reach us prior to the deadline. Those members are Danielle Oriola, who is the owner of Rooted Hair Studio, and Angela Tempest, the owner of Tempest Originals Custom Carpentry. And then so those two I'd like to move to be appointed to the working group. And then I want to have a conversation about another applicant.
Before you move on,
Yep.
other discussion, do we need to move? I mean, you're a subcommittee, you guys can appoint your own members, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there's no
There's
Okay.
motion.
Left.
Yep, you
We did
guys
the
are,
First 7. we
you're good to
slated the
go.
First 7, we're slating the finals.
yep, that's
Finals.
great. So we've seated how many in total now?
Actually, when we get to the next, it will be 11.
Okay, go ahead, Meg, sorry, thank you.
No, I'm sorry. I wanted to thank Mandy for the memo that's included in the agenda packet about the obligations of a subcommittee working group. And I wanted to ask some questions about how we can best communicate items that would inevitably be subject to RTK, and I'd like to talk about us including those in our agenda packets for the Planning Commission and just what that sort of looks like, and if you have any advice on how the best way of going about that.
Sure. So the question came up whether or not this committee would be subject to the right to know law. And we are conservatively, it's my recommendation that the working group proceed as if their documents would be public records, subject to the right to know law. There are some exceptions that might apply. The personal notes of the members, working drafts of certain documents are protected, but I know the working group and the planning commission want to maintain the transparency that they're used to and that you're used to. So our recommendation is that they do proceed as if documents will be subject to will be public records. So just in light of that, our advice is just to anything you're putting in writing just potentially will become part of the public record. So just maintaining formality with things. And of course, anything that the working group submits to the planning commission will make it into the record. And any formal recommendations they come up with. So I think it's just, as you have your meetings and move towards putting formal recommendations together, just keeping in mind that these are going to be public records. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's just, something to keep in mind as we proceed.
And one of the things that Mandy has offered to do, which I think is a suggestion which we will take up, is when we get to our next meeting, we launched on it as Megan said on March 18th, and we'll be having our next meeting in April. We will brief all of the members of the working group who may not be familiar with right to know, and just make sure everybody understands that it's text, it's email, it's everything. And so that would be it. And so that will be a very good briefing. Thank you for the generous offer.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. And there are residents and business owners on this committee that might never have heard of the right to know law. So it's to all of a sudden be told everything you put in writing could be subject to scrutiny. It can be a little intimidating. So I'm happy to educate everybody.
Thank you for that sensitivity.
Awesome, and I apologize, there was no formal introduction to Mandy. Culhane from GRB Law has been retained by the Planning Commission as independent counsel from Crafton Borough's solicitor. So thank you.
Hi, everybody.
And, as always, welcome.
Megan, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so my intent is to say, I've talked about this a few times that what I'm enjoying about going about the business development sort of working group this way is precisely the transparency that comes from working through the planning commission. So I'm hoping I wanted to get your advice. My plan would be to try to have our agenda as part of our planning commission packets, so to be included. I recently learned about a lot of costs that the borough has incurred with right to know requests. So I would rather just kind of put as much information in our agenda packets at the planning commission level as we can, because that's my, intent with the committee or with the working group, the subcommittee.
Appreciate that. Well, with that,
We're not done.
oh, there's more.
There's more. Megan, how do you want to proceed? Do we want to talk about each of the members, and then you said there was one more you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, we had a person apply to the subcommittee who is a business owner on the Ingram side of the shopping plaza, who rents from the owner of the shopping plaza, which we've heard so much from residents, from others about the importance of the shopping plaza, and its space in our community. So it's a conversation about how to sort of so that individual is a real estate agent and knows the owner of the plaza well. So we have really acknowledged the good perspective that he can bring, or value in his knowledge base. And I think AJ and I have talked about sort of viewing him as an auxiliary member of the working group. And I just wanted to talk that out with other members of the Planning Commission about, your thoughts on, that sort of intricacy of a applicant.
So for the record, we had said we wanted 10 Crafton residents or business owners, and we had a desired number of business owners and a desired number of residents, and we have achieved that well. This particular individual is not a Crafton resident, but he has a business in the shopping center. And so that is the thing that we want to just.
talk in the microphone and nobody can hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you for saying so. Yes, so we had the original application, and just because there are people who are here, we are seeking 3 to 5 business owners and 2 to 4 residents to join us to support the planning process for business development efforts for 2025 and beyond, because you asked that we state this at the beginning for newcomers. The initial work will include both charting our course, broad vision and goals, rolling up our sleeves, doing interviews, getting data input, data analysis, providing recommendations, and we were looking for a balance of individuals who can contribute business or marketing experience to ensure that we're focused on the right things, as well as bring the perspective of the community in. So that is the framing of it.
Awesome.
So I think, to Megan's point, just want to check with Rhiannon, with you, Eric, about the value or the concerns about having. By the way, he has joined us for our first meeting, and he understands he's an auxiliary member.
Yep.
He understands he's not a full member, so he's brings great value in terms of perspective.
I can share a pretty strong opinion, Rhiannon, if you want to say something though.
Yeah, sure. I think given the nature of the committee, it's not a council, it's not a commission, it's not an official body in any way. I think it's appropriate to have an auxiliary member, given their unique knowledge base in an area that really has the potential to affect Crafton. It would be great if we had someone who was on the Crafton side, but it looks like we don't have that. So I think it's good. I think as long as there's transparency in this person's role, at this meeting it's being made known. As long as any concerns that residents have are addressed, I don't have an issue with it. I'm glad that this person is interested in joining.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Like I mentioned, I have a pretty strong opinion about it. And it's grounded in 2 pretty important levers. The first is thrive. Our strategic plan is based on 3 really important constructs. And for those that aren't familiar with our strategic plan, that we all it's our litmus test for everything that we're doing in our volunteer work here. It's around economic development, fighting blight, and creating a walkable, livable neighborhood. And the specific lever that having someone like this, yes, auxiliary member, it's fine, makes perfect sense to me, especially in the connotation of the economic impact. This is somebody that's very familiar and ingrained into the business of our area. And that's also the second lever of it, is really anchored in what we're doing with zoning. So a lot of the initial zoning grant that we received, although our friends in Ingram didn't really fulfill their obligation of it, and it's very disappointing, in my opinion, to see that Ingram has failed to implement their zoning, because we were sharing in the grant to do so. And the central most important portion of doing this was to update our zoning around the overlay district. And the overlay district, Jim, can you explain what an overlay district is between Ingram and Crafton with regard to the shopping center?
Sure. An overlay district is a district, zoning district that is basically correcting concerns that had happened before without doing an entire rewrite of a zoning code. So it allows you to affect just one district, and that was done. I'm not sure when that was passed, actually, but there was a Student Street overlay done at some point since the last zoning code was updated.
So really trying to get this in totality around being able to advance what's possible and give the owners of the shopping center the most opportunity to advance against blight, to increase walkability, and to improve the economics of that shopping center is really important. So to have somebody that's kind of entrenched there and knows there seems like a tremendous asset as an auxiliary member, since they're not specifically a business owner in Crafton.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, Megan, anything else from you before I just do a quick review of who's on our committee and we submit the names as Megan said, we would just to know that it is Danielle Arreola, as she said, Angela Tempest and now Joey Booker as an auxiliary member.
Awesome.
Okay, can you just move your entire life? You can move the whole thing so that between you and so that you can hear it.
How about if I just move this one forward? Is that better?
Is that better?
Pardon me? Put your hand in front of your mouth. Oh, sorry. That happens. Okay. All right, here we
You're
go.
doing great. Andrew.
So, I'm gonna do a quick review just of, I think all of us who attended the meeting and Greg was there. I think Greg you can make your own comments, Greg, but I think share just the enthusiasm for the process, the topic, and the people who were involved, who are on the committee, and we thank all of them for stepping up and volunteering their time to help us. And so I'm just going to do a quick rundown of who they are, so you know, and what they bring, and feel free to go to them as well if you have items or suggestions or things that you want to know, but we're going to have some formal processes for data gathering. So as Megan mentioned, there's Danielle Arreola. She has the Rooted Here studio. She has a very interesting cultural background, having traveled with a mission internationally. She has a multinational client base that she's bringing to Crafton. She's a minority business owner, and so there's just a lot of, and she is really enthusiastic and has a lot of energy for connecting people. And that's what we're hoping for, is to connect people. We've got Jennifer Shorthouse. So anybody who doesn't know, Jennifer is the owner of the Blue Snail, the gift shop, and she brings us wonderful practical experience as a startup in Crafton. She has a lot of ideas about what was challenging to do business here, and so we've got her perspective on that. She already offered some great suggestions that we were able to work into the planning for the borough budget, like we need more trash cans in the business area. I mean, just some really practical things like that, as well as creative ideas. We have Nick Kelly and Abby Kelly, the Fig Tree, which if we had an award, they might be the favorite new business. And in addition to being that, they also bring grant writing experience. They have connections with chambers of commerce, because in some ways we don't have in Crafton what a chamber of commerce might do for a new business trying to start up. So these groups are already taking action. So the Kellys are all out seeking community input, and I think it was there's one other person who had that. We have somebody named Angela Tempest, and I would just like to do a quick poll. How many people here know that we have a very important custom woodworking business that does both commercial high-end customization of wood, as well as do-it-yourself for parties and all sorts of things like that? I had no idea. Their name is Tempest Originals, and Angela is actually on the Robinson, maybe rec board or one of them.
There.
So she brings that experience with her. And she's very committed to bringing more business to Crafton as a business owner. So that's part of what her motivation is. We've talked about Joey. Heidi Munn. Heidi, long-term Crafton resident, former member of council, has an online retail business. She also has connections and is searching for more interns through professors at the universities who can bring somebody in. Logan Drew is someone I met first through this. He has an interesting confluence of 20 years of real estate, finance, and technology, as well as doing strategic work. And he also doesn't mind rolling sleeves and doing nuts and bolts stuff. He actually referred Angela to us, and he referred Joey Booker to us. These are people who he brought to the committee, which is valuable in and of itself. And he has actually taken the directory that the intern did last year and has, through AI, already started to build out who are the owners of these businesses, what are their addresses, how do we contact them, and has access to a CRM system that we will see if we can use so that we can start using some software to be in touch with people, which is very exciting. We've got Greg Wozniak, no foreigner to this group, who has a strong experience in engineering and design, planning, and so forth. And so he's going to bring those design skills, those draft skills, plus his knowledge of this process for all of the years and some of the original goals. So we're thrilled to have Greg there. And Kristen Schuley, who some of you may recognize from these meetings, who is a strong advocate for engagement, community, and she's passionate about building up the business district. And she talks to business district owners all the time. So that's it. That's our group. We're very excited, and we anticipate having, just getting some things done. So with that, Megan, is there anything else you would add?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for summarizing everyone who's in the group. And just looking forward to working on this for the next few months. Thanks.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to see. I think a lot of us have really wanted to get to this point for myself. This is several years. So to see us finally kind of turn the page and get to the doing as opposed to the just planning is a great thing to do. You have a great team there. Sounds like really, wonderful people, dedicated people. And there'll be lots of opportunities to everybody here to engage, both through planning commission, through the subcommittee, to really make the most and help Crafton thrive. So thank you.
And I'd like to also thank Megan, who really took a stand to say,
Yeah.
we can take this on ourselves. We
Yeah.
don't need a CDC. Let's give us a chance to do this. And
That's
so
right.
I appreciate very much, Megan, your participation and your leadership in that.
There's a lot of benefit to a CDC, but a CDC is not underneath our ability to really do anything with, but hope to work with. So I think that is a tremendous pathway. Those are with the CDC exploration that we had a few months back can see why this is, in my opinion, a far better path to see come to fruition, especially this quickly. So thank you. With that, we're going to move on. I am going to amend our normal agenda going forward. I just want to make sure this is always kind of assumed, but has not been written in. As we head into general public comment for everyone here this evening and online, I just want to invite other commission members. If there is any new business that you wish to bring forth, that we can plan for in the next meeting or a minor discussion right now. Is there any new business, Rhiannon, Meg, AJ, anything that you want to address right now?
I'm getting in the dancing mood. I'm sorry.
Right.
Did I miss an update on the trail development subcommittee?
Yep. But I'm happy to provide that as a minor new business item. So as many of you know, it is terribly exciting to me that we have finally moved forward with the trail study and the trail committee. The committee's been formed, we convened, we've walked the areas under assessment, under analysis currently. There is, and I want to thank those that are here that are part of that because it's a big step. And don't think that we're going to have, paved new running trails here tomorrow morning. But these are incremental steps that we have to take. We have tremendous opportunities in our waterfront, woodland, and community eco friendly thoroughfares throughout Crafton. So what is happening is council has put forth, they want a grant. They receive state money to put forward what's an important step, expensive, but an important step in moving this forward, which is study. And the RFP is out. There are a dozen.
We actually already have a recommendation for council on Thursday, so there will be a firm probably selected on Thursday.
Awesome.
There were nine applicants.
9 applicants, the committee, so a subcommittee on the trail study has met to review. I did not join that because I'm on this body, but I am on the trail committee. They did meet, they did evaluate, they scrutinized 9 proposals. I'm sure they're high quality. What I was able to glance through seemed like that, and they're making a recommendation forthcoming. So once that process comes to bear and someone has been selected and the procurement process ends, then the real work of the trail planning will begin. And the focus of it, there's a lot of what you think of trail and Crafton. There's a lot that we can think of. This is specifically addressing the Army Corps of Engineers property that abuts the Crafton Creek, the Chartiers Creek, as well as the area behind what I call Dr. Sakai's office. I guess people will now call behind Fig Tree, but the area that connects the Woodlawn Busway up to the Black Street Bridge. So those are the two areas. That's not the only thing, but those are two kind of hard topics that need to be addressed through the study that they're going to shepherd us through and really hopefully turn a great page for us to move forward with official trails in Crafton. So thank you. And is that helpful? Great. All right.
Mandy, did you want to add it?
Yes, sorry.
Any other new business? All right. So with that in mind, we're going to turn it over to general public comment before we adjourn. This is your time. I will remind all that this forum is free form. It does not need to relate to this evening's agenda. So those that had comments that we've been looking for around conformity, et cetera. Well, public comment, I'm going to read this word for word so I don't get this wrong. Well, public comment isn't a dialogue. The commission will ask staff to be available to address and clarify in the event there are any misunderstandings or misstatements herein. Please again note that only Crafton residents, property owners, or business owners may comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. We'll be timing. And while all comments are welcome, we ask that you please refrain from personal attacks, obscene language. Please be neighborly. So with that, the sign-in sheet is out for those that need to sign in. This time around, we're going to start online. So anyone who has wish to provide public comment in the general forum is welcome to, with a show of hands in your Zoom, hit the little yellow hand button, and Jim will bring you forward.
Okay, Mr. Sheets, you are free to go.
Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Just wanted to voice my I voiced this in council when they had brought it up as well. My support for the single family build on Ewing Road. Just I think it's a thing that Crafton needs more of. So just want to simply voice my support for that. Second thing I wanted to bring up is that I am both a property owner, and 2 properties actually, and as well as a business owner that is on the very line between Crafton and Ingram, and also outside of the plaza, which the planning commission themselves has, acknowledged is a huge point of focus. And I have asked to be a part of this business development committee. I was invited actually by Mike within the to apply for it. And although these other people are being discussed tonight about being brought in, there's been no response to me whatsoever. I've built a business from the ground up. I bring hundreds of people into this borough every month that would not otherwise be here. I think that I have something, a point of view and experience that can be incredibly helpful to this business development committee. And I'm just asking. I think that it makes me even more valuable on the committee to be both a business owner in the area that you view as so important, as well as a property owner who owns 2 different properties in Crafton. So I'm asking the planning commission respectfully to kind of review that and potentially set something up with me to discuss it more. I take it very seriously. It's not something that I intend to create contention over. I view it in a very positive manner, and so I'm asking you to reconsider and to add me to this business development committee. And I appreciate it. Thanks.
Good.
I guess what I would just offer,
We're not gonna have
I'm
any,
sorry.
this is public comment only. We're limited to clarification and misunderstanding. So is there any other online comments before we get to in session?
At this point, no one else has raised their hand.
All right, if somebody has something, please put your
Oh,
hand up. We're gonna-
somebody
Oh,
did. Sarah,
okay.
I will, all right, Sarah, Ms. Head, I will allow you to talk now, according to this.
Thank you. Just pulling up my notes. Okay. I would like to address concerns related to increasing rental housing units and business presence in Crafton Borough related to the proposed Crafton Transit-oriented district. I'm assuming this is the district previously known or currently known as C2, though I'm not sure about that. Per the proposed zoning changes, the intended development pattern and building form within the TO district is for vertical buildings of 2 to 5 stories with small or no setbacks, with off-street parking, etc. As I'm sure you're aware, on March 21st, 2025, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette shared an article where the headline read, "Facing a Crisis, Pittsburgh Regional Transit may eliminate 41 of 100 routes." CEO Catherine Kellman says the fallout from ongoing financial turmoil has been a long time coming. This article draws attention to significant budget shortcomings within the Pittsburgh Regional Transit and the possibility of reducing approximately 40% of routes. And given the crime, safety, and vacant storefront challenges that downtown Pittsburgh is facing, I'm wondering if it's prudent and in the best interest of our borough to amend a zone area based upon the ambiguity in both of these areas. The areas, again, are transportation and business. I would advocate a watch and wait approach where the borough shelves this particular zoning district to any changes related to it until we enforce a waiting time of at least 2 years. If the PRT maintains or increases their routes and the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership continues to increase businesses per Governor Shapiro's 10-year revitalization plan, I would suggest we revisit it at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. No further online?
Nope, that is
I'm
all
gonna
for
turn,
online.
and if somebody does pop up, just put your hand up. We'll circle back to you online. Those that sign up to speak, welcome aboard. So again, you can refrain from sharing your address because you put it on the page. We do ask that you do sign in with it on the page.
legibly.
Well, legibly, yeah, that goes without saying. But introduce yourself, please.
Sandy Morris.
Thank you.
So at the end of the last meeting and on the Savvy Citizen announcements, the 25 and 2,500 square foot zoning request all related to Thomas Street. I mean, that's what everybody's saying is what drove this analysis and all that. But nobody has pointed out that in the new zoning, Thomas Street is in a multi-use district and there are no minimum lot width or lot size. So why are we using them for this project? I don't understand, because no matter what you do in CR and NR, it doesn't do anything to Thomas Street. They're in a different zoning district. So I'm confused by that, if anyone wants to clarify that. I had other stuff, but I'm just. I don't know. I don't think there was a comment last month about how this 25 or 2,500 square foot thing would help increase your property value. I don't see it. You know, there was a house on Sterrett that just sold. It's a non-conforming lot of 3,800 square foot. It sold for the market value, not because it was conforming or non-conforming. It would have sold for more if it was a 5,000 square foot lot, not because it's conforming or non-conforming. So I just have a lot of issues with that. And for all the liabilities that Mike presented last week, they are all possible. I'll agree, as I sat there and shook my head. But they are all possible, but in all reality, they're not probable. So it's a big difference. So I just would like y'all to really consider that I don't think it's a good thing. I'm strongly opposed to it. Leave it at 40 and 4,000. Thank you.
Go on up. Your name, good sir.
Yeah, James Mangan. 1 minute. Mine's more of a confirmation kind of thing. So in the event that you do have a non-conforming house, and it does burn down, you are allowed to rebuild as is. I think starting or within 1 year, that's correct, right?
18 months.
18 months. So my warning here, before we vote based on perceived urgency or a direness, is that we know that a non-conforming lot can be rebuilt as is. So to change something kind of based on, well, it might be better this way or that way. My house is non-conforming. I can rebuild as it is in the event something terrible happens. So I would advise against voting in this kind of state of urgency, thinking that, hey, we're gonna protect them. They're already protected.
Thank you. If you haven't signed in, when you come up, please sign in. We just ask you, state your name.
Hi, Jan Sweeney. I have 3 questions, and 2 of them are from a long time ago. When we first started talking, I had asked if the borough had a list of the businesses. And I know you said, was it Drew Logan's compiled a list of businesses? Or did we ever get a list of businesses from the borough that operate in Crafton? Because at that point, we really didn't know.
We do have a list and we're filling it out. It's a little dated. It's a few months dated.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
progressing.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and the other hot topic from a couple of months ago was the house on Fountain Street. And I haven't heard anything about that for ages. The one at the corner that, you know, that whole ordeal.
Are you talking about 11 Fountain Street that Maura Burgess,
House is right there.
was asking about? We are still attempting to get an administrative search warrant to get into that house to potentially start a conservatorship where the borough fix it up, or Maura Burgess buys it, or someone else buys it.
Somebody had told me there was a lot of remodeling going on, or municipal cars down there, and
No, nothing is, we have done nothing with the property. We have not been inside the property at all.
okay.
Yep.
And my third question is, this is for Mike and Jim. Can you report on your meeting with the school board about selling the athletic field and setting that up as retail with residences about?
We have not had a meeting with them yet regarding that. We are meeting with them next month to start discussing that. And
So there is no, there has not been a meeting?
there has not been a meeting. I met with the school board with the land bank on March 11th to discuss the possibility of Crafton joining the land bank, which is another way to get rid of blighted housing. It's a state law that was passed in 2012 that allows a entity like a land bank to buy houses cheaper at sheriff's sale than we are able to buy them, or residents are able to buy them. And thus kind of fitting that middle ground where those houses just go vacant and nobody does anything with them, instead of just letting them go and letting them fall into dilapidation. This entity will buy them, fix them up to a low level of development, and then sell them. So we met with them, and the reason we have to include the school board on that is all 3 taxing bodies need to be willing to release their liens. And so you need the county. The county's already agreed on board for every municipality that wants to join. So they're on board, and they have been for a decade. And then you need the school board on board, and you need the council on board as well. So that's why we met with the school board.
I would just ask everyone to be cautious because we already have empty properties in the Crafton Shopping Center. And with the state of the transit as unknown, and now to take another big project for retail and residential, I would urge caution there. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, Mary Buckswalker. As someone who's been very involved with that area, I'm gonna thank you, Jan, for bringing it up. I think Crafton needs to buy that area. That's our last green space here in Crafton, in the middle of town, where everybody can go. Everybody can walk there. You already got the shopping center sitting there. Tons of, think of all that could be built into the cement area of that shopping center. Let's utilize that green space. Look at Carnegie, you know, they're building up their park. They're not like, that land was left for the children and the people of Crafton. Why aren't we utilizing that green space? I really think, do we need new housing there? No. Do we need new businesses there? No. Let's utilize it, a park area, let's utilize it. You take that away, I'm sorry, do we need a gas station? Heck no. You know, we've got that. I'm sorry, Crafton purchased that from the school board. Don't give it away. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Mary. Next.
Mine's not very juicy.
Thank you, Crystal Beam. I have a question about the trail study. The land that was donated from Mrs. Baker, was that in tax arrears, and did Crafton Borough have to pay anything to obtain that trail?
It was not obtained by a gift. It was purchased for, both properties were purchased for $50,000, and there were no liens on them or encumbrances. We actually got the property for about half the value.
Okay, so thank you. So it was $50,000 for the Baker's Acres Trail, correct?
For two of the property, there are 4 pieces to that property.
Donation, correct?
One of them was that was the most recent piece, was a $5,000 anonymous donation, which was approved at the last council meeting. It is not, I haven't gotten the final paperwork yet. So technically the sale has not gone through yet.
Okay, will there be any expense with any of the trails that follow Chartiers Creek in the near future? Or is that something that we would partner with to be able to build that up?
Too soon to tell. The trail study is not really kicked off yet. Once the RFP is finalized, then more will come. With whatever expenses could be incurred or not incurred.
Okay. So was there a budget item for the purchase of that trail?
The $5,000?
The $50,000.
That was 2 years ago. I'm not sure if it was budgeted prior to my arrival. It would have been prior to my coming here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Crystal. Mr. W.
Great one.
I have a few things. First off, the Linden property. I agree with everything said that the Linden property, the ball fields, the old school property should be maintained as a green space or an extension of our park. It's right next to our park. That would make our park go from that area all the way down the Chartiers Creek and all the way to CIT fields. I think it's a fantastic asset, an asset that any borough in this area would want to keep. So I am adamantly against any kind of development on that property. The citizens put a proposal together on that a few years back. It was well received at that time by the planning commission. It included a little bit of business so that we could kind of offset what the school board was trying to do. I recommend everybody take a good look at that proposal. And Jim, I also would like to know, that is your meeting with the school board a public meeting, or is that just between you guys?
It is not a public meeting. It is, they are allowed to discuss property matters, and it's really, the idea is to work out the details so that we can have a public process discussing anything that moves forward with the sale. That was not how the school board moved forward at first. They were attempting to take it through a court sale where they did not have to do that. But regardless of how we do it, the borough has to have a public process and get input on what happens in that sale. And we're trying to ensure that we have as much flexibility as possible. So if we go out for an RFP process, for example, we have to take the highest bidder, which we don't want to enter that process, because then the community has no choice. Once it's been agreed upon, we would prefer to go through a process where the community has opportunity to voice any interest at the very beginning of the process, and then work with developers through the process to get a development that the community wants, as opposed to just selling it to the highest bidder or selling it through a court sale. So that's why we're meeting with them. That's what we're trying to advocate for. That's what all of council is trying to advocate for. But we have to get there. We're not there yet.
So is there any leaning towards green space or leaning towards
There has been no specifics about.
We're leaning toward getting public feedback first.
Right.
That's what we're
Right.
advocating for,
Right.
starting with public feedback. And so we have to convince the school board of that value proposition.
And they have to understand that we have to go through that regardless of what process, because if we're going to give them the property, at some point, we have to have an intergovernmental cooperation agreement. So no matter how we do it, there's going to be a public process. We would rather it be a public process so that you all have input at the beginning of the process, as opposed to, oh, here are the three options. This is what we chose. You can either take it or leave it. And we'd rather it be much more constructive than that.
Okay. And then back to what's up for tonight is about the April 2nd, the sooner you can get out to us people the format of the process, the better. I know that you're saying it's only a week away. If that seems too tight for everybody to get things done, maybe it should be a little bit further out. Also so it seems like it's 25-foot lot frontal width. Is that off the table now? Because it's kind of not being talked about. It's like Thomas Street people were dragged into it, and then they're not being talked about. Is that off the table?
We were simply looking for public feedback, and we have gotten no positive public feedback from this group.
Okay, all right, and let's see. And also with the when you voted on the conservancy properties, did you vote on the entire memo, or did you, of all the streets that were on that memo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounded like that's how they.
To move into the draft plan.
Okay, and that it would have been helpful if there was if that was on a topography map, so if somebody, do any of those properties have a steep backyard? You mean they're on flat on top, steep on the back? Is there a chance that they're in conservancy because of the runoff or everything above their land is not stable land, even though their house is on flat in the front, steep on the back? Is there a chance that that's why they're in a conservancy?
That could be. There are certainly ones with steep backs. Most of those do not enter onto other properties. There are a few along South Grandview that do enter along other properties, and I can update it and provide I used a 5-foot contour lines. So you can see at 5-foot intervals where the contours are, and it's very clearly you can very clearly see where the steep slopes are that way.
Right.
I can absolutely create a map that has that on there.
Okay, so I'm just trying to think back if someone asked why you thought they were there in the first place. If it has to do anything with the steeper part of their lot, or someone up a hill from them, or the runoff of their lot onto somebody else's land, or on Union Road, causing washout.
Yep.
So that could be why there's a conservancy that might be dumping away, or we were changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Come on up, please. And we do have something else on the line.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We'll get them next.
Yep.
I just want to move on. Let you know that I am not in favor of changing the width of the properties to 25. And I'm also in favor of leaving that area that you're talking about at Linden Street as green space. Thank you.
I just have some comments.
Come on up.
Yeah.
State your name, write your name and address on the page, please.
My name is Steve Churko. We talked about the 3 strategic goals, it's like eliminating blight and stuff like that, just fix the roads. Like I noticed a lot of, when I go on Baldwick, there's a lot of abandoned cars. So there's a lot of maneuvering, and you get very dangerous in that road.
It's not Crafton.
And probably doing an alternative to Aldi's, I mean, sorry, Giant Eagle, it's kind of expensive, it probably be a lower cost grocery store, probably would be better for that area. And I agree with the green space, why not make it some type of greenhouse with the grow room? Maybe like a community run, I hate to say that, it could go up. Garden of some sort, you can produce food. But that's about it, I just wanna say, let's get the blight, like the cars on the side of the road for months, not years, some of them have trees growing up on Baldwin. Fixing the road, my roads are full. Like, there's some potholes on my road where they can almost fit a car. And I would just like better roads, if I'm paying for something, I want better roads. And that's about it.
Awesome. Can I ask you to write your name onto the
Can you tell me where that pothole is? Because we do we have a service request form that where is it at? Hold on.
May I make a comment?
please?
And yeah, it's there everywhere. I see these roads, they're a nightmare, like massive potholes. And they can really do some damage to cars.
Yeah.
But as far as the zoning thing, I don't really care about it. I mean, I'd rather not do it. It sounds like it's a bad idea. So.
I'm sorry, what was your first name?
What?
What was your first name?
Steve.
Steve. So I would just like to pick up on something that Steve said, and that is that all ideas from you guys for business development are encouraged. So get them into us. We will, we're gonna be canvassing, we're gonna be talking to people, but please give us a written note of what your suggestion is, so that co-op thing is, right in line with what we're thinking. So the more that you can get those ideas to us, we will collect them. Thank you.
Public comment?
Can I have a quick follow-up?
You had your 3, I apologize. Maybe you can whisper it in somebody's ear and they can come up.
I'm just gonna yield, someone's gonna yield behind me. I just have a real quick question, and is there evidence that the 25-foot lot width, reducing them to 25 foot, is there any evidence that will bring more businesses to Crafton?
Thank you for your comment.
Oh, and we do have Kristen Shuley online too.
Oh, we'll get to online next. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Marissa Tate. I can't do 2 things at once, sorry. This has nothing to do with zoning, but it does have to do with the trees on Broadhead. So, about 6 years ago at a sleepaway camp in Los Angeles, a kid was killed from a large branch falling on them. And, a nature educator, a friend of mine said, if you care about somebody and you're outside, you should be looking up. So the ridiculously large, they're not branches, they're huge pieces of trees that fall on my property, on the street. Years, it's so aggravating, really dangerous. And they're like the really tall branches, they're dead and they're hanging on, and please, I need somebody to take care of it, because the liability for our borough is not good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. If you do have requests like that, by all means, there is a service request form on our website. Please enter it in there. Those requests will go directly to the Shade Tree Commission, who will then decide if they will have an expert go out and decide whether they need pruned. If they're street trees, if they are in your lot, then they're your responsibility. But if they're on the right of way, then they're our responsibility.
All I do is clean up leaves and I don't want to trade, so it's actually annoying. But so I bought my house in 2009, and it's the first time I've come. I work Tuesday nights, but I would never know how to do that. Like, it's not explicit, it doesn't make sense. So you don't know who to call. So if you're not coming to these meetings, I wouldn't have known that. So I don't know if you could think about ways to make it a little bit easier for residents to put these things in. really embarrassing. I didn't know that we had an antique store in Crafton. I've been here since 2009. So understanding what businesses we actually have, what they offer, websites, would really be useful. And
Yeah.
it's not as embarrassing when you don't know that this is right down the street. You could walk and not try. So
Yeah, yeah. I am gonna go to the, before you step up, so I'm gonna go to the person online who's been waiting here. Thank you. Kristen, you are free to go.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So since the athletic field has reared its head again, Jim or Mike, maybe you guys could just clarify and remind everybody who currently owns that property, who is attempting to gain ownership, why they're attempting to gain ownership, and what the public process would be should somebody come in and say, I'm just going to use this as an example. This is not something that is actually going to happen. So just so that the Crafton rumor mill is aware, but let's pretend that it is decided somebody wants to develop a sheets. So what is the public's process to either support or oppose that development?
Well, I'll explain first the first part. The last part I might not be able to answer because it hasn't been decided. That's still being worked out. There are multiple processes with which a school district and or a municipality can dispose of a process. The school district actually has more flexible means than the municipality. But that being said, there are two large properties next to Giant Eagle and is it Walgreens there at that side? Yeah, Walgreens at that point. And one portion of that is owned by, and I put owned in quotation marks because it's owned with caveats. So it was given to the borough by the school district at some point in the past. I'm not sure when, but years and years and years ago. And there's an agreement that as long as the municipality uses it for municipal uses, they don't have to give it back to, or they can own it into perpetuity. If at any point the borough decides to stop using it for municipal purposes, it reverts back to the school district for ownership. The school district has, in 2018 or 19, reached out to the borough to sell it because they did have a developer lined up that was interested in selling it. And then there got into a bidding war with two gas stations, Sheetz and Getco, on two developers. And then when they had to come through a public process to make that sale happen, so they started that public process. And of course, the community came out against it. Not wanting it, putting a gas station on a greenfield is obviously not a great idea. But so that's how that process happened. We are in the process. This council created a market study 2 years ago, right before I started, to look at what could be possible there. We've been trying to work with the school district in creating a process that is acceptable to the borough, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we are hopefully in a better process now, and we'll be meeting with them next month. But as far as how that process, how someone would come and dispose of that, it's actually really in the borough's hands because the borough controls zoning on that property. The borough doesn't have to sell their piece if they don't want to. And the borough has the most valuable piece of that property, the piece that is on Steuben Avenue. That is the piece of the property that gets the most traffic. If you're a business owner, that is the piece that you probably want more than the rest of it. So the borough does hold a lot of cards in this process. So we're able to, that gives us a much better position for negotiating a better way to dispose of the property if the school board still insists on doing so. And there is still one other person online too, but this gentleman has been waiting.
Did the person online finish?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Kristen, are you, well, she already muted herself. So, oh, no, you didn't. Are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
To follow up on Greg's question,
I'm sorry, what is your name?
Dave Saperzi.
Thank you.
Reducing the lot size to 25 foot. Will that guarantee increased business in the area?
Appreciate your comment.
Okay, another question. We keep using the term non-conforming. each and every lot that exists in this borough is already conformed. They are grandfathered in. And you keep using this term as a scare tactic. And you're letting the landowner, oh, we reduced the lot size to 25 by 100 feet. Your lot's gonna be okay now. That does not apply. You think you're telling these people that you're doing them a favor. You're not, you're scaring them. Okay, now going to the fee for subdivisions. Was a little bit exaggerated. You're permitting through the county to get the permits are $375. $35 per lot. For me to survey a 5-acre lot. 5 acres, we charge $5,000. Our fees for engineering, soil testing and all that, our fee is $10,000. So this is a lot smaller than what you have projected here tonight. This is a nominal fee for a developer. He can go to the bank, get whatever he needs to develop these lots. So you're giving a lot of misleading information here tonight. And you need to stop using the term non-conforming.
We do have Lynn Solis online here. Lynn, I'm going to allow you to speak now, or there you go. Lynn, you should be able to.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the woman that was speaking about the tree branches, it made me think of something, and I'm going back to the whole zoning thing and, allowing additional rental space and things of that nature. If that happens and we allow all these rental properties to be developed, is there going to be any oversight by the borough on how these rental properties conduct themselves? And I ask this because I live next door to a rental property that I've had numerous issues with. And when I say issues, I'm talking about tree branches falling where my child plays, roofing, the roofing with nails coming out of it every time the wind blows, falling into an area where my child plays. Calling the owner of the rental company does not help. They're a borderline slumlord. There have been people in and out of this house for the past 2 years. So it does concern me on the street that I live on, which is a topic of discussion, or the surrounding area. How are we going to have oversight on these people that are just piling people in, putting a roof over their head, collecting their check, and we're just supposed to live with it? So it is a concern. Thanks for listening.
First Abbott, I just have a question about that athletic field. I've been here my whole life. That was left to the children of Crafton, to be used by the children of Crafton. Crafton then deeded it to the school board. Is there something legally we can do? I mean, if they're selling it, it was in this man's will. This was to be used by children, not to be sold to a sheets.
That's right.
I mean, you're an attorney, and is there a way that they can stop this because the property was willed to the borough of Crafton, and then gave it to the school board to be used for the children of Crafton?
I'm not familiar with this transaction at all, so I'm unable to answer that at this point.
It was a man's will this property to Crafton Borough.
I can assure you due diligence will be had as the process moves forward. As you know, my involvement in all this began with combating the Linden Street conversion back in the day 5 years ago. I agree with you on many levels, and the others that have been here tonight, but the point is we're not, as a planning commission, this isn't a point of order for us at this point. It will at some point come through planning commission. I certainly encourage those who support the green space retention of the Linden property to make that voice heard to council. You're all recorded this evening and that does get reported up, but we continue to encourage your feedback and all the things that you're saying. So thank you. And yes, those are great things that you're surfacing.
Steve Shorthouse. I have two questions. One may seem naive and may have been answered 2 years ago, but what was the biggest problem that was identified to start looking at the opportunity to increase the population? Is it simply a borough budget issue? Or was it brought up for another reason that maybe be able to be divulged to us at some point?
I appreciate the comment. We're putting out an FAQ and having an open house next week to address these things. I'm not sure where there was a goal to increase population in zoning, but we're certainly, and I know density has come up in many cases, but I think that we're going to rely on staff to come up with answers to these questions. Thank you for bringing it forward so we can get thorough answers out.
Okay, great. Second one was just came to me. Not that I have the money, but how much would it probably cost to buy that property back from
Great question.
the school district? Like if they said, listen, if we get this much for it, we'll be happy. Can we tell that number?
I can tell you what they expect, and that is 3.5 million. Because that's what was offered at one point, and that's my guess is what they expect.
And you're not quoting something. We're not giving the school board a quote
No,
here.
no.
But that's when the Sheets deal was prevalent several years pre-pandemic. So there's a lot of, but yeah, we're talking about round numbers and certainly something that perhaps the Crafton Borough could handle.
Yeah.
And make
Not
the
only
school
that, but,
district.
I mean,
Yeah.
people are very, adamant about it.
That's exactly
Do
right.
some fundraising, we
Yeah.
can do some grant type of stuff to do this.
Lots of ways.
3.5 million, that sounds like a lot. I mean, I don't have it, like I said, but it's not a lot of money when you think about how valuable that would be.
Absolutely.
If I have another second, I think a lot of people think that there are people involved in the process who could personally benefit from some of these decisions, and I think that could be valuable if the borough would put something out there to say that, either identify that that's a possibility, or make sure people know that, listen, that nobody involved in this process is going to financially benefit from, let's say, making this, properties different zoning. Because I think it's a lot of what you hear out in the public is people go like, well, if they do that, this person's gonna benefit, that person's gonna benefit, all this stuff. And if you let that out there, it'll just stay out there and people will just think that that's the truth. So that's just a comment I have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can make a statement to that is everybody who's appointed or elected in the borough has to fill out financial disclosure forms that are annually, that are then reported at the state, and no one has reported on this year's filing that there's any interest involved at all. So there's no
Includes senior staff as well.
Yep. So we have all filled out legal financial interest forms. Yep. So there's no financial interest for any of us. Yep. I would like to answer a Q&A that came up.
Please
Just,
do.
it's a brief one. Cody Sheets was asking and wondering if the planning commission has any involvement in the current or potential plans to fix Ewing Road. Or is that a council decision? And that is firmly a council decision. That is not something that planning commission will have input on.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comment? Please come up.
Hi, my name is Richard Dixon and I live on Crafton Boulevard. I just got a couple little questions and or ask. With the business development committee, can we get a list of those businesses or those individuals? That way we understand who they are and how they apply to this borough. And second of all, if you're +1, you're an auxiliary person. From the Ingram side. My question is, for him or for that individual, does Ingram have a committee similar to this?
Not that we're aware of. Ingram does very little.
And is it a person on any committee over on your side?
Not that we're aware of. Ingram does very little.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
there's.
Ingram does very little.
I just want to clarify that. And but the property is sold for $5,000, then you say it's anonymous at this point. Was it not given any information? Was the person who purchased it an entity, a person that may have, you know,
We
their
can't-
anonymity is being given away?
We can't share that.
You cannot share that at all. Thank you.
Richard, can I make sure that you sign in and AJ's gonna give you some feedback on your first question?
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I understood your first question. So I wasn't sure if it was about asking about who the members of the committee are or who the businesses are.
I mean, if we can go into detail of one, the business, and but also the persons, you know, we have these people who are making, you know, or our community out.
Right.
But not like their personal, you know.
Right. Well, we would ask, I would ask, that would be up to the members themselves, to the degree to which, so I would propose that we would talk about that at the next meeting.
It's gotta be public record.
Yeah, and this was
Right.
established in January. They're making leaps and bounds progress, but
Right, the names
It's not
were,
done,
the names
yeah.
are in there. Names are in
I
the
just want to make
minutes.
sure that there's some clarification so we understand.
Yep.
Yep,
All right. thank you.
absolutely.
Two pathways were explored several months ago. A community development corporation, which would be completely in the private sector that we could somehow try and support. Which was clearly not something that anyone here was inclined to be interested in. But nothing we can do if somebody wanted to go out and do. This was something that was brought forth as a subcommittee within the commission. We voted to authorize and set up the subcommittee. The subcommittee has met a handful of times now. They have moved with Godspeed to do some great things, and more will be coming as they come to fruition. And I thank you specifically, Meg and AJ for really spearheading great work.
We've met once.
Yeah, they've met once.
Yeah, we just met one time, and I just want to give you know, a good overview, and I just want to say again, because I know that there are folks in the audience who may be their first time here, or that we put the business development subcommittee out as an opportunity for folks to apply to be a part of at the beginning of February, and we had our application period up until February 14th. And so it's been about 6 weeks since the deadline. So we've put folks on the subcommittee and we have met. But as the original posting for this indicated, it is intended to be a short-term sort of subcommittee. And so with that, I think, our goal is to reevaluate where we're at after 6 months. And if it's something that should continue on, I think we'll reopen the opportunity for individuals to be a part of it. But we have at this point.
Hey, Megan, could I just ask for quiet in the room, please? Respect for Megan and for those of us who are
Trying to
hear. Thank you. I'm sorry, Megan, please continue.
I can't hear the room, so I wasn't sure. Yeah, this is just to say that we opened this up at the beginning of February, and that the period for applying to it was on February 14th, but that that isn't to say that in a next iteration that more folks could be a part of it, and a new group or continuation or whatever reevaluation. But at the moment, that's where that stands. And I believe the posting is still available online for folks who want to look at the purpose. Well, not quite purpose, but where this came from. But like AJ said, the members of the subcommittee are sort of the residents and business owners are really driving the group.
Thank you, Meg.
Thanks.
Any other comments in the room? One more, two more. Okay.
Steve Crescenzo, just had a quick question regarding the process for the public meeting. Will we be provided an updated document of the draft zoning ordinance prior to that? Because we had the motion tonight to adopt the changes in the conservatory districts. So are those going to be rolled into the new draft prior to this?
Can you get the map updated by Friday?
We're gonna do our best.
Okay.
Yes.
And also, are we going to have a bulleted list of any other changes or revisions that have been rolled into that document since?
The goal would be to have a track change document. We have a track change document up on the website right now, but we'll make sure to get any of that updated prior. The maps are the most difficult part. So not entirely sure that I'll be able to get all the maps done, but we will get the other pieces done for sure.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve.
Hi, my name's Ken Crutchman. And I got just a curious question. What about the old grade school property? What are the plans, if any, for that? It just sits up there. Is that still owned by the school? Do you know?
No, it's not owned by the school. It's owned by an independent developer. And I guess
Oh, it's
years
taken
ago that they tried to develop it, but I'm not aware of
Okay.
any. We have not heard from the owner. We haven't heard from them. So I don't know if they have any interest at this point in develop. I'm sure they do have interest in developing it if they own it, but we haven't heard from them.
And I have just one statement. With all due respect, me and my wife think a 25-foot lot is one of the stupidest things we ever heard. Now, that'll change this town if it's taken to extreme. Thanks.
Carla Palua. I just wanted to comment on what everyone is saying about the 25-foot lots. Based upon the last meeting, some people on the planning commission had stated that it would cause some issues with value of your home, and it would also cause insurance costs to go up. So I did do some homework on that, called my insurance company. Actually, I called another one, and I encourage all of you here to call your insurance companies. Because according to both of my insurance companies, what would cost my insurance to go up would be if this zoning went to 25 feet, not the opposite, the way that it was stated. So we keep talking about transparency, but we're not giving accurate information at all. And that's what I'm asking for, accurate information. So with this zoning, I don't consent to any of it right now because I'm not getting clear and concise information. I'm receiving narratives. So please, to all of you, check with your insurance companies. Do your homework. It's important.
It's not my thing. I just have a question.
This is neighborhood speaking.
Pardon me?
This is neighborhood speaking. It's
Okay. Hey, everybody. Jerry Stewart, and I have a question in regards to why we only have a Giant Eagle available to us and there's no other grocery store. Did Crafton Borough or whoever make a deal with somebody? Is it a stipulation that nobody else move in?
Crafton Borough has no deal
I
with
just
anybody.
wondered why I know they bought the two shop and saves, so we
Right.
really are between a rock and a hard. Sorry, I'll write my name real quick.
Thank you for your comment. No, it's
Thank you. I have another one too. I have a question. So Stover Hirschberger Funeral Parlor and the Shetner McDermott Funeral Parlor, being as we're not really doing a lot of viewings now, I feel like those businesses are going to shrink. And I just wondered, would a business, be it like a dollar store, be able to move into Shetner McDermott if that closes shop, if they close shop?
Thank you for your comment. I think there's some scenarios. This is a great thing for us to address in the public forum next week. This is just comment that we're collecting your feedback.
Okay.
I will make one statement that one of those two just purchased someone else in their family or someone just purchased it. So I can't imagine that they have any plans. They spent over $1 million on those two properties, so I can't imagine that they have plans to.
It just
So,
occurred to me, I
yeah.
wondered.
It's a good question.
Because
It's a good,
one of
it's a good
the
question.
Chairman is, the transportation, it was rezoned to transportation.
It's not that much different from what it's zoned now. It's zoned as a business. It's a commercial area. It's zoned, it's still zoned as commercial. That hasn't changed.
Yep.
Yep.
Any others? I have one email, that did
Once
come.
again, could I just ask for people in the room to not have separate conversations so we can all hear effectively? Hey, Mary, can I just ask you guys to just let us continue? Thank you so much. Oh, yes.
Okay, I believe that we just have one email that came. I want to read into the minutes. If there are any others, please come up while I'm reading this. But other than that, I think we've reached one email. We've reached the end of the public comment. So this comes from Carolyn via email to the borough.
Could I just, we could put her full name in.
Carolyn Marsh. Carolyn Marsh is what I believe. Carolyn Marsh, yes, and the address is here, so we'll have it all into the record. I hope you're well. I wanted right to express my support for proposed zoning changes, indeed for some that have already been scrapped too. I'm a YIMBY housing affordability is a major issue right now and increasing. Housing supply with more multifamily buildings is a great way to combat this and also to get more people into our community, more kids in our schools, and a larger tax base. I think that unfortunately Democratic-led areas have unintentionally gotten into a place of overregulation, which means that we aren't able to solve the issues we so desperately need: housing equity, supply and affordability, sustainability, and climate readiness. Getting more people into the borough with reasonably fewer bureaucratic hurdles to building makes sense for all these reasons, as long as the new housing is safe, clean, and fairly managed for the residents. Having lived in mixed-use neighborhoods in Chicago and Portland, neighborhoods with quite limited parking too, I perhaps have more expansive view about what makes a nice place to live than some who think the American dream is a single-family home, large green lawn, car in your driveway, and a picket fence, to be a bit reductive about it. I want more people who live in a borough, renters too, to grow it into a more dynamic, vibrant community that will be more pleasant for everyone to live. So the plan has got my support, my husband's too, though he probably won't bother to write you.
There you go.
So, thank you, Carolyn. Any other comments? Again, planning commission email, lots of ways to contact the borough, a lot of ways to get a hold of us. Love the comments tonight. I appreciate it about Linden personally. I will make a special note for those who remember the Crafton School District. Howard Silly, administrator from Crafton School District, recently passed. For those whose touched his life, mentor of mine, we certainly appreciate it. So with that, Crystal, you had your time.
I just wanted to ask if you could add an email address to your memo, because you keep talking about planning commission email, but got all this other information on here, but no email address.
Well, that's the agenda. Planning commission at craftonborough.org.
Yeah, the only concern is it hasn't been working exactly as designed, so when we do get a message, we'll make sure to forward it to everybody. But yeah, we'll put it out there.
When in doubt, jprice@craftonborough.com and m.tedesco@craftonborough.com.
It comes in through a forwarding to us. So.
I can help you out with that if you want to step up after we're in. With that in mind, if there is no other public comment, I thank you all for your attendance. I hope that you were able to get your voice heard. We certainly are listening and appreciate it. We'll see you all next week.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes. Is that what you were gonna say? Or...
And don't.
And don't.
Is it your wife you said was behind you on this?
My name is Gordon Smith.
Hi, Gordon.
I live on Barnett Avenue. And just so you're aware, I spent 8 years with Crafton Council in the late 80s and early 90s. And the one topic that came up was the Crafton Athletic Club at that time. Now, I worked closely with Ed Witt, who was a solicitor. that time. It was my understanding, based on what we knew at that time, that the property was seeded into a trust. That trust was going to be administered by I don't know who, because I didn't get that far. But it was supposed to be in perpetuity for the recreational purposes of the people of Crafton, not the Cardington School District. Cardington was welcome to use it. As a matter of fact, they offered the property where the Giant Eagle is right now for a new high school, if they wanted to build it. The powers that be decided to go up to Robinson Township. I guess for 100 years, whatever it might be. But that's how that came about. Now, if it's changed since then. I don't know what changed. That's the information I have.
Your feedback is welcome, your
I've
comment is
heard
welcome.
this time
Thank
and
you.
time again, but that's what we understood at that time.
Yes.
As far as the tree on Broadhead Avenue, what you have to do is document it. Find out who owns the tree, the property that it resides on. If it's on a private property, it's their responsibility. Notify the borough, let them know that it's a liability. If the thing comes down and they haven't taken any action, you know what to do.
That's right.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. All right, with that in mind, I'll let the room settle. Thank you, Gordon. We need I need, before we can adjourn, I need a motion from the group to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
AJ, motions to adjourn. I'm gonna go ahead and second because I'm not sure who's online. And with that, all in favor? We
Aye.
are adjourned at 8:43 PM. Thank you.